This is a Bible Forum, September 3rd, 2017. What happens when you turn an ordinary fear into a mental disorder? A case in point is something called xenophobia. Xenophobia is a fancy word for the irrational fear of strangers. You don't like strangers. You are afraid of strangers. They don't have to be people from another planet. They just have to be people that are different from you. Now, we are led to believe that this is inborn and that it flows from some sort of disruption of our chemical or mental processing. It's mental, perhaps. Is it physical? Or is it emotional? Or maybe it's all three. And of course, you do realize when we're talking mental, we're talking brain, which is really not your mind at all. But I digress. Are we living in such a way that we need to know how all of these systems interact with each other, and we need to have drugs that, should one or the other of them malfunction, would return our balance? That's the heart and soul of the psychiatric medication world. And all we really have to know about any of this is that none of it is our fault. You see, that is the underlying principle that governs all mental disorders. It's not your fault. You have a mental disorder. See, I point to my head. You got a mental disorder, but that's not your mind. The decisions of life are not being made in your brain. The decisions of life are being made in your soul, in your heart. And we point to the pump, but it's the heart of our being. Here we're talking about something called xenophobia, the fear of strangers. Well, science has come up with a cure. No, it sounds like a cure. All these medications sound like cures, and they're not. It's just a means by which you can overcome this nasty and debilitating reaction to strangers. And it's not just a small, it's a severe aversion to foreigners, maybe just to the way they live, their politics, their culture, whatever. Or maybe it's just people you don't know. We used to call all this sort of thing clanism or racism. The idea that people of other cultures or colors or regions of the world or country were just not to be trusted because we don't know how you live and we don't know what you're doing. And you know, in some cases, that's a wise place to stand until you get to know them. Think raiders of the Barbary Coast or natives of a country or area in which you're traveling. Now, the Barbary Coast is thrown up as a euphemism. I like to use it a lot. But it's drawn from the actual Barbary or Berber coast of North Africa, the Ottoman regions of Algiers, Tunis, and Tripoli, including what we now call Morocco. These were Muslims who routinely raided European and American ships entering or leaving the Mediterranean back in the 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th centuries. I say routinely until Thomas Jefferson came along, sent the Navy and the Marines over there to stop it. Now, stopping it meant coming to terms. We paid the Pasha $60,000. And we got our captives back with a promise of no more raids. I think we also stationed some ships in the area just in case. As you might see, the concept of xenophobia is very broad. It applies to both real and supposed threats from people that are not like us, whoever us is, and a fear or distaste of their natural ways. So why are we talking about xenophobia? Well, apparently researchers have got this cure. It's a drug. It's called Oxycontin or cotton. Oxycontin? Yeah, Oxycontin. You've heard of it. It's a narcotic. It's an opioid pain reliever. Now, researchers have found that administering this drug to people who have natural fear of others led them to losing their fears. Specifically, the article refers to these people giving money or help to people that they originally feared. In the article, it says researchers have shown in a new study that the bonding hormone oxytocin, together with social norms, significantly increases the willingness to donate money to refugees in need, even in people who tend to have a skeptical attitude toward migrants and so forth. Did you see the switch? We're not just talking about strangers. Now we're talking about refugees. We're talking about migrants. Xenophobia is somehow now being used interchangeably with racism. The researchers are quick to point out, however, that the two are actually different in that one is much more specific than the other. You see, racism defines prejudice based solely on ethnicity, ancestry, or race. Xenophobia covers any kind of fear related to an individual or group perceived as being different from the person with the phobia. It's largely a distinction without a difference. But the researchers explain that this condition is born of fear, and it doesn't have to be real fear. It can be a supposed fear. The threat of losing one's identity, the threat of losing your culture, your purity. Sufferers imagine a superiority or a purity in the formerly unknown people or culture that initially spurs the disorder. Now, I want you to notice in all of this, it's pure nonsense. This is science in search of a cure for something they have created or imagined. And the real kicker here, this drug is designed for you. Oh yeah, you. Our minders are talking about giving this opioid to ordinary Americans and others so that we are not so wary of the influx of undocumented, illegal gatecrashers who threaten our way of life, not to mention our safety and our stability. Yeah. Researchers at the University of Bonn Medical Center, in cooperation with the Laureate Institute for Brain Research in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and the University of Lübeck in northern Germany, tested 183 subjects. Now, all of these were German natives. The subjects were asked to read about the needs of real-life refugee families and decide whether to donate money to them or to native German families with needs. Now, according to the researchers, the hormone drug Oxycontin administered in combination with peer influence caused people inclined to have negative attitudes toward migrants to actually want to reach out and help them. Conclusion? The bonding hormone Oxycontin, together with social norms, significantly increases the willingness to donate money to refugees in need, even in people who tend to have a skeptical attitude toward migrants. Science Daily, reporting on the study in its August issue, said, for the half of the participants who received Oxycontin, the result was astounding. Did I mention it's addictive? Look for a government program to make Oxycontin available to people in sanctuary cities, or maybe to our children, the children in school, or the children in welfare families, or whatever it might be. And it's going to fix everything.